listening to the Remote Work Europe podcast, the show formerly branded as The Future is Freelance. The name has changed, but our values have not. We're still the podcast for solopreneurs, digital nomads and slowmads, consultants, remote workers, e-residents, and everyone living a life without traditional boundaries. We're here for people who defy categorization, those who make a living and a life their own way, in Europe and beyond. Fortnightly on Fridays, we're serving up expert tips, inspired insights, and stories from the frontiers of freelancing and the remote work revolution to help you achieve success with your borderless business and liberated lifestyle, whatever success means to you as you live life on your own terms. Welcome, Remote Work Europe listeners. I know you're going to love today's interview with Han Talbot because we so often get questions from people about whether it's really possible to live the dream, to travel the world, creating content, creating photos, videos to actually reflect the areas that you're visiting and showcase them and make a good living and a great life from it. So I know you're going to love what Han has to share about the work that she does, how she evolved that career, and what that actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Now, before we dive into the interview, one of the things that Han and I are going to be talking about is, of course, your online profile and your presence, because these are the things that really matter when you're building this kind of remote creative career. And I just wanted to let you know that our famous LinkedIn challenge is running again in April. So I will drop the links to register and find out more about that into your show notes, along with all the links to connect with Han and find out what she's doing around the world. But if you dream of aspiring to her lifestyle in the future, you could do a lot worse than jump on our Level Up Your LinkedIn challenge this springtime. So I would love to see some of our regular listeners there. And in the meantime, let's talk to Han. Han meets world, Han meets Remote Work Europe. So welcome, Han. It's lovely to have you with us at the Remote Work Europe podcast at last.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It seems like, this one's been a while coming. We've known each other for a few years now, and I don't know why we haven't sat down behind the mic before. Well, I've been on your podcast, but it's high time we had you back here. So I'd love it if you could start off by telling us a little bit about you and your remote work journey, about remote creatives, and give our listeners a bit of context about Han.
Yeah. Oof, what a big question. So what do you need to know about me? I've been on-off remote for about 10 years. My journey, I guess, it's funny when people say like, oh, where did you first realize you want to be a digital nomad? I always say like, no, it's definitely been like an accumulation of like several things across 20 odd years. But I suppose you could say I've been on-off remote officially for about 10 years since I did a study abroad. And I realized I got paid to write a blog while I was studying. I was like, oh, people can create money like while away and like from their homes and they don't have to go in an office. So yeah, been testing and trialing that on off like in London, went full-time remote thanks to a little push from a little pandemic that we just had. And yeah, I do marketing on one side, and then I also have the remote life on the other, which is a content creation business mostly focused on digital nomad tourism, which also now is beginning to encompass the remote creatives, but that's a new project that I'm more than happy to talk about as we chat.
Well, I think this is like an awful lot of the people we meet in this space. You're a portfolio person who's constantly evolving what you do, looking at things just on the edge of that, being open to opportunities and things that come up in your life and putting your portfolio of skills together to respond to those opportunities. What does it look like, your typical day or week or project?
To add to that also, it's the demand as well, because like the remote life has 6 episodes of a podcast. And then over the course of 2.5 years, it's become a content creation business in its own right with a separate thing called Creatives now. So, and it's been in response to the demand that I have had from my audience, from people in the industry. So there's that bit too that I think that we could definitely talk more about. So answer your question. So typical day in the life. It I guess I don't necessarily have much of what you might call a routine, but I have non-negotiable. So I will start the day very much relaxing into the day. I will sit and have my first cup of coffee, and I won't do anything official. That'll be my little meditation time, if you will. And that's a non-negotiable for me. I have to sit and just be with, here's where I am today. Today being I'm in Vlora in Albania. Very beautiful for those who are curious about the Albanian Riviera. Then I will get to the laptop after I've had breakfast, got ready, and then honestly, I try to start the day doing things like emails and anything that requires a bit more brain power. That could be anything from emails to content creation to strategy, the things that my brain can do best in the morning. Then by the afternoon, it's funny, the amount of people who I talked about on my podcast who are like, yeah, my brain's kind of dead in the afternoon. So I'll normally go for a walk, or I'll do something a bit more chill, or I'll go to the gym. And that's literally what I do. By the middle of the afternoon, if I haven't kind of got some tasks that I can do and my brain's feeling a little bit more kind of in a lull place, I will normally take myself off for a walk for half an hour, or go explore, or that's my time that I'll go out and take some more content of a city or whatever it is that I want to see that day. That's a really good time to really get into that creative side of things that don't need to strategize as much. And then come back to the laptop, either in a cafe or a co-work space, whatever it happens to be, or now my apartment. And then, that could be anything from calls to more emails to documents, whatever's needed at the time. It's a very big mixture.
Yeah, but you have that sort of overall shape to the day, which is interesting because you could be making that happen in so many different contexts and locations, but you still know. I think a lot of the people who are most successful at managing these kind of remote lives and these very self-directed lifestyles are people who have a very clear knowledge of themselves and how and when they work best, what sort of zone they're in. I'm similar in a way. The morning is for writing, creating, editing, the kind of door closed, head down stuff. Whereas in the afternoon, I'm more likely to be having this conversation, interviewing a source, or doing something that's more, I need the door open in the afternoon because I won't focus on the head down stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. People will look at what I'm doing online and go, "Oh, you're living the dream." And I'm like, yes, but in order to create the dream, you've got to have a lot of discipline and self-awareness to make it work. And it's things like knowing how your brain works. So some people are night owls. You won't get anything productive out of me by 8, 9 o'clock in the evening.
Oh God.
My brain, it's not that my brain's dead. I just, for some reason, from 1 to 4, you aren't going to get anything of particular use out of me. And I know that other people have said the same. They're like, no, I might as well go take that siesta and come back strong again. And I think it's an interesting lifestyle, but it definitely takes a couple years just to kind of get to know yourself and work, for sure.
Yeah, it's very interesting, especially going on from last week's episode with Pilar Orti and her book on time management for remote. It's so much about that self-knowledge and self-management because nobody else is setting the time and the agenda for you. And we love the flexibility that brings us, I guess. And we have to think very flexibly when, like you, we're doing a blend of client work, our own creativity, our own publications and projects. Can you talk a little bit about that mix and how that looks right now? What sort of specific activities are you working on and how does that break down?
Yes, I suppose I didn't really clarify too much in the intro about what it is I specifically do, I guess. But I have my two businesses. So one is marketing and one is content creation. So I guess they kind of go hand in hand in a way. In that, one side is obviously me helping other people build their brands and campaigns, and the other side is me being the face of the content itself. So it can be anything from consultation calls with their clients or say their personal brand that they're trying to build. Other days it could be, for example, me sourcing some influencers for a campaign or for speaking engagements. Sometimes it's creating strategy for a particular product launch for somebody. And then on the other side, it can be editing and putting together photos and videos or posts for a particular campaign that I've just been on with a destination, for example. So it honestly varies. Or for example, I'm currently potentially looking to put together a course on remote life. So it's very much varies. And then all while building on also the remote life. So again, sourcing potential guests, as you know, like it could be at the moment I'm trying to build up a new website. So it really varies on so many levels. But it varies from those taking contents and things and going out and about to being on the laptop on Excel and having the best day ever, with formulas. So it's...
I'll take your word for that. That's your best day ever. But it's really interesting, actually, because it sounds a lot like what I do with words, you do with multimedia content, and that same kind of blend between the client work and the primary creation. Do you ever find any tension or conflict between the two, such as that sometimes comes up between the realms of, say, journalism and content marketing? Are you an impartial observer, or at what point do you put your participant, your influencer hat on, if you're comfortable with that word, and we can find another one if you don't like it? But do you ever think you're crossing a line? What do you reckon?
Hopefully I'm answering the question right. But first of all, it's funny because people are always like, I roll my eyes at the term influencer now, because having worked in marketing before the term influencer became the word of the day, I used to get asked as a marketer to go find influencers, right? But that could be anybody from like the head teacher in a village to the mum that runs the school newsletter. And this was pre like 2018 when the term influencer really took off as something who like has a TikTok or Instagram following. So I'm always like, I roll my eyes because on the one hand, it feels cringe to claim that I'm also an influencer in that way, but then that's the most palatable term. So you call yourself an influencer, even though you don't. Yeah. So that's why I find that word is very contradictory. It's a conflict for me to say that I am an influencer, but I know that a lot of people the most palatable term, I guess. If I'm understanding your question correctly, I guess journalism versus content creation is a conversation that has been coming up for years. But what people forget is a lot of journalists are also content creators. Like so many people who I come across have a journalism degree, have a background in journalism, and then have decided that actually content creation, they can get sponsorships to make more money as well. So, and within the same trip. So a lot of them will actually take both and put them hand in hand. A lot of people on their destinations, for example, are looking for content creators because they are able to do photos, videos, be the face, do the journalistic research. Like they are a package and they have the following, which I know frustrates a lot of traditional journalists, if you will. And it still does, funnily enough, I'm sure. So it's not that I think either one is like better or worse, because at the end of the day, journalism, it's
I'm sure I think you're making a lot of sense to me that there shouldn't be a divide anymore, perhaps. Perhaps we've evolved beyond that in the same way as we have between employment and entrepreneurialism, that we live in a more blended way today, and that we can balance the kind of thought leadership activities that come from knowing something really well to have your own expression and ideas about it, as well as those you're writing about other people.
I think where a lot of the tension comes, I guess, is the fact that obviously the mainstream view, unfortunately, of content creators and influencers is still the entitlement, is still the taking. Unfortunately, that is still a very big stereotype. And don't get me wrong, it comes from somewhere. But I can understand where the tension comes from when that's the main focus. But at the end of the day, you can't stop content creation from coming. It is not just the fact that it's a look at me kind of activity or pastime. People are making money from it. Gen Z and all the younger generations, they are making money from it and building really great, solid businesses from this thing, which in this current climate, why would you not want to encourage?
I wouldn't encourage them to go do a journalism degree, honestly, right now, because, start a blog. Whilst I would never dispute the benefits of working with an editor and learning that discipline of working with a publication, the way to actually build your experience now is you can just go out and do it anyway. So why not? I think
I did PR officially for a year, and I don't have a PR degree. Apparently I did beat out a couple of candidates who did a PR degree, but because I had a social media following back when that was still very much an alien thing, that's what they wanted and that's what they were going into. So it's not, I'm not saying don't do a PR degree either, no. But times are changing, and at the end of the day, we have so much more available to us, so many more resources that enable us to build these presences. Whether they're used for good or bad is obviously up to the individual. But at the end of the day, I will never quite understand why one would pick a fight with the other, to be honest.
I think, sometimes I look at cases where I think that there's an ethical line being crossed, or someone's not being transparent about, say, how they get paid. Is it by this publication to create this content, or is it the person that they're praising? And then, so I think there can definitely be a lack of transparency around the boundaries between being an analyst or being a journalist or being a content creator, but provided people are transparent about it. And it's very easy to be transparent, right? I mean, that's the world we live in. You can just declare referral links or sponsorships and things. And we all recognize that's how the world goes around. And this is what people do for a living. A lot of us anyway.
I think that's it. It's absolutely down to the individual because, influencers, for example, say in the UK, are held to the standard that they should be declaring their ads, right? Whereas journalists don't mind, they might go on the same press trip, for example, and they'll write for, say, The Guardian, but then they don't necessarily have to declare anything on their Instagram. So it's just, could be argued that, where's the line there as well? Because
and they're getting paid by The Guardian, but they're getting freebies from the brand. So, yeah, that's just sort of a bit of a double dip potentially going on there. And yeah, there is a risk of a lack of transparency, even though you still hear people, particularly on the journalism side, being very purist about it. No, I could never do content. That would be selling my soul to do. And I think, well, really, okay, but maybe you have to sell your soul to keep the lights on if you don't work for a tier 1 publication, because it's very hard now to get started. I think
there's a mixture of things to consider as well. Is that, like I said before, there are a lot of people who have a journalism background, but who then make, you can make quite a bit of money sometimes, from tech sponsorships, from tourism sponsor. Well, not tourism, not so much, but unfortunately, but you can find ways of making money outside of your main focus, like journalism. But then also it comes down to what I think this is why they both come hand in hand. Is because I've seen and worked with different destinations. We focus just on travel, for example. I've seen destinations who are very interested and heavily focused on wanting to bring in the Guardian. We're talking about the Guardian, so the Guardian writers. They want them to come in and review the destination and write a however many page spread. That's for them, their focus for that quarter, for that month, for that campaign. So they will then want just journalists. Other times people, for example, I've worked on digital nomads programs where they'll go, right, we want content because we want to find the digital nomads. Where are digital nomads? They are on social media. They're not going to be necessarily picking up a hard copy of The Guardian, especially if they're not from. So it's one of those things, again, people forget that different destinations, different companies, different campaigns, different times, no matter what the scope is, different scopes are always looking for different things. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a battle of journalists versus content creators. It's all about what the client wants at the end of the day. I think you can best fit into that too.
Definitely. So if you were advising somebody now then who maybe wanted to go into a creative career like yours, maybe they want to be a digital nomad, or at least they want to be remote, don't want to be dependent on a single job or showing a place, and they've got those kind of creative skills, they like telling a story visually or in words or a mixture, what would you suggest to them now? What would be the best route to get started if it's not go to J school, or what kind of tactics might you suggest they try?
I would do exactly, well, first of all, I'd have to say, right, you've got to be slightly a bit insane to want to do this.
Oh, obviously, yes, that goes without saying.
The second thing would be, why do you want to do it? Why do you want to go into this career? Because the third thing is that it's going to take a long time. This is a process. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? And I'm not saying that it took me years and years and years, but at the end of the day, I had to start building from somewhere. And I did a languages degree. So it was, again, very nothing to do with marketing and whatever. I literally said on my study abroad that after watching a few YouTubers that we didn't call YouTubers back then, we were just weirdos who created videos online. I said to my friend, I'm going to create a career from social media. And she was like, how do you mean? What does that mean? Which now it's duh. But back then, no one could see the route. And so for me, it was really funny then sitting with her a couple of years later and her going, oh, that made sense. And so basically, I would say the same to whoever wants to start it now. It'd be right, okay, you want to come into this creative career, you want to have a remote career, you want to live this, what looks like best beach life, with coconuts, cool. But you've got to have a strong why. Why are you doing it? For example, for me, I love the freedom. I want to be the owner and in control of my own time. And I know that, there's just several reasons for me that keep me going, even like in the dark times, if you will. So you've got to have a reason, in my opinion, to want to go remote, that above anything else. If you think like, oh, I want to go work on the beach, I joke about this in keynotes when I did that I've done. If you just want to go sit on the beach and pretend you're working on your laptop, you need a holiday. You don't need a remote. Go take a holiday, then come back. So that is first and foremost, why do you want to do it? The second thing is, you're in this for the long haul. This is not an overnight thing. So if you think you're going to make like a quick buck, yes, you hear a lot of people make successes of posting something on TikTok and they get like $1 million in sales, but that's not guaranteed. So the next thing is, again, how many followers did they have to build up first? Like how many years have they been posting on TikTok? There's all these things to consider as well. So once you understand that you are in this for the long haul, you've got your why. I would do exactly the same now as I did 11 years ago now. I would open a blog. Because blogs last forever. They might seem old school. The amount of people say to me, oh, blogs are old. Like, why do you still post on a blog? They're the ones who've survived the Meta outages. They've survived the TikTok ban. So I would open a blog and I would start writing. I would start putting videos and putting them up on my blog, putting them up on YouTube, putting them up on TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And I would start honing my voice and I would start creating that presence online. And developing your voice. And what I did back in the day, if you will, can't believe I could say back in the day, but I would start learning how to create good blog posts. This is what I did. I used my blog to then create a marketing portfolio, because everyone was saying to me, oh, become a content creator, you'd be good at it. And I was like, well, I don't know what that means. So I then used that to then build a portfolio to then take to companies and say, hey, I can help build a social media following. Hey, I can help do a website. Well, this was pre all the crazy Google updates and SEO updates that we had to keep up. But I then was able to, as a graduate, I might be 1 or 2 years into my career, but I've got a solid portfolio that I can start actually showcasing you. And it got me into these jobs over people who had in them. Oh dear. But I would start building this online presence for myself. I would start honing my voice. I would start commenting on different things. I would start interacting with people who are in similar fields, as you and I do on LinkedIn now. I would start building my network and really building that voice so that I can go to employers. But again, it depends on what you want to do. Do you want a full-time marketing job? Cool, great. Do you want to be a contractor? Do you want to be a fractional CMO? What's your ultimate goal there? And I would start honing my voice and honing my skills into that and what that looks like from there, using that portfolio. So again, I'm sure social media is going to be around for another however many long years, but I will always have my blog. My blog is my property.
I think that's so interesting. And this is absolutely solid gold for anybody listening to this who's thinking, I really like the sound, not just of the beach and the coconuts, but the independence and the self-directedness of this lifestyle. You have got to start putting yourself out there. You need to claim your bit of the internet. You don't need anybody's permission. You literally need $20 worth of domain or something, stake your claim on your little corner of the internet. Own it. You don't have to have it all figured out. You can evolve it as you go. I'm sure both you and I, Han, if we look back at the earliest things we published a decade ago or whatever, we wouldn't think, oh, well, that was completely on brand and aligned in my very best work. But the fact is we were putting it out there. We were starting the conversation. We were starting to build that reputation, that authority. And even if we pivoted, even if we shifted, we had that track record. And as you said, when you were a new graduate, you were going up against people who just spent their time acquiring that degree, and good for them, and whatever else they did on campus. But you had a portfolio of real work and of presence. And it's kind of a self-evidential thing that people look at it and say, actually, this goes back years. And this is I can see this following is authentic because it's been built steadily. It's not one of these suddenly somebody hangs out their shingle as a social media consultant and they've suspiciously got 4,000 followers in one day but no engagement or whatever. You built that from scratch, and that's a really powerful thing. And you didn't need anybody's permission to do that. You couldn't have bought that, and you didn't have to go to a special university of course or anything else to do that. So it should be within everybody's power, right, to do this.
Absolutely. And there is so much free information. I had 2 points to add on to what you just said. And one is that the internet is free. The school of internet is vast. Like the amount of time you can sit on, especially now, like again, oh my gosh, I wish I had how much information is on the internet at my fingertips 11 years ago. Oh my gosh. How much further would I be? And honestly, it's everything from like, okay, how do I write a blog post? Okay, how do I like survive the next Google update? Like, how do I like tweak this widget on my blog? Or like, how do I get where do I find the best mics in 2024? Like, it's crazy. Every single piece of your content creation journey, you can learn from the internet. And all you've got to really hone and find yourself is your own voice in that. And that goes on to my second point, which is the internet is not saturated. I know I just said there's a load of information, but the internet is not saturated yet. Like again, like you want to be like the same as your favorite, I don't know, TikToker who does, I don't know, dances. Maybe yes, that's saturated. But what's not saturated is your voice. Because only you can bring your voice to the internet. You can only bring your experience, your expertise, like, your life, whatever, to the internet. So again, don't tell me the internet is saturated. Post that thing.
No, nobody's done that before. Nobody's done you before.
Yeah.
So if you just hold to that authenticity rather than trying to replicate something that's already out there, because you're right, that has been done and that already exists. So the person who most influences you and you think, I want their life, if you try and copy them direct, yes, it's already too crowded because that space is taken. Whereas if you bring you to the situation, nobody's ever done that before. And it is all out there. And I agree wholeheartedly with what you said about the wealth of information and what you can teach yourself. I mean, I'm older than you, Han. My traditional learning took place using things like libraries and books. If I wanted to learn something, I had to go and buy a book about it. I had to go. I couldn't just go on the internet and get a book, never mind a YouTube walkthrough of it or a Udemy course or LinkedIn Learning or something. It's all out there. And I do have to kind of remind myself and other people sometimes that you can learn anything. It's out there. You might need to pay to filter the quality of that information because the first Google will bring you a whole load of paid for prioritized stuff. You might have to drill down, but it's all out there and it's all a tap away. And it really is quite mind blowing to think about that sometimes. And maybe that's too scary. I don't know. Is it easier for people to think, well, I'll just go and be a whatever traditional career I can put in a box because I can't cope with all of that's out there.
If that's how you feel, then fair enough. Again, I am never going to be here to be like, no, like you must take a leap and da da da. Like, what you want to have what we might call a traditional career, you go for it. You can still learn at the end of the day to get to do better, like with your job, fine. But even things like, TikTok is becoming the like highest search engine, most used search engine for Gen Z. Because again, like TikTok is bite-sized information. Yes, okay, maybe check your facts. However, like, yeah.
And check your facts everywhere, let's face it.
Of course. The beauty of the internet now is that not only do you have it in written form, not only do you have it in long form video on YouTube, but you've also got it in shorthand video as well on TikTok. I've learned so much from TikTok. Like my mum uses TikTok to learn so much. Like again, we have a different app or a different platform for all learning needs too now. Like you want to get on a course, there's probably a course. Like you want to find a tutor, there is probably a tutor who you can chat to virtually now. You don't even have to travel to them. So I think that there is, if you are wanting to learn, if you are willing to learn, there is a way for you to learn.
And you're part of that. You're helping people learn to take up the lifestyle and the kinds of activities that you do. So tell us about some of the stuff that you're creating to help other people.
I know, it's so funny. I had my heart just went, that's really funny. So yeah, obviously I've got my podcast that you can go check out the podcast. That was really started to help people who are looking to really get into the nitty gritty of what it means to have a remote life, to become a digital nomad, to have a remote job. Because again, like you don't have to be traveling the world with just your backpack and a job to, call yourself a remote worker. You can be based somewhere and work remotely. So we've got all different things for different people. So there's the podcast. You want to go learn from Mediavine and how to monetize your blog on Mediavine. We've got that. You want to learn how to scale your blog into a full scale business with Nomadic Matt. We've got that as well. So there's that side of things. things, then now I currently have a new goal of building up the Remote Creatives, which began a newsletter, which, as I said before, like earlier on, like honestly came about from people asking me loads of questions about how to create a personal brand, how to do affiliate marketing, how to build a community, and is now turning into like slowly more and more different pieces in its own right. So I now have a WhatsApp channel, so people who want to connect with fellow content creators around the world, you can join that. I've got a new website that I am determined to sit and fully build out that is going to have destination guides for creative digital nomads. So far we'll have Istanbul, Tbilisi, hopefully Vlora, we'll see. I'll keep you posted. And then also definitely going to have to go back and revisit places like Mexico City. So there'll be a few destinations to keep up with there. There'll be kind of your guides for specifically a little bit more tailored towards creative digital nomads. So like, where are the artsy places to go hang out? Like, where are the good places to take photos? Where are the groups to come and meet people? The WhatsApp group. But yeah, so it's just that's kind of my focus for 2024. But you can still find a lot of general topics on the podcast. Han Meets World as well has also got some of the more like the where to remote work articles too. And then LinkedIn, I'm always down for a little chat and analysing different destinations too. So we've got all.
Well, everybody listening to this, where if you're driving or walking or something at the moment, you'll have to come back to your app because we're going to put all of Han's links into the show notes for you, because there's a lot of different places to connect with her depending on what's resonating with you right now. Is it the creative side of things? Is it the podcast? Is it the remote life? And I love that Han's podcast is the remote life because that comes before the work or anything else. It's about that completely integrated lifestyle. So what's the one place that you would suggest people go first, Han, if they just want to get into your world?
I was going to say the easiest way to think about it is you can find me on all the things at Han Meets World. Come find me there.
Han Meets World. That's the word of Han.
Yeah.
Well, you can't say any clearer than that. So I think that this has been a really interesting conversation. Just to wrap it up, tell us about what you're excited about now for the year ahead and where you see sort of your remote life, your creative life going, any changes, any concerns? What does the rest of 2024 inspire in you?
Well, my first thought, Maya, was I'm really excited to hopefully see you in person again at some point.
Yeah, somewhere. That would be lovely. I look forward to that.
Oh, we keep catching each other in different destinations, which I love. Well, what's changing? Everything's changing, Maya. Honestly, it's early March, and already I've had to change my plans like a couple times. So yeah, and I think, the website didn't exist about a month ago. So lots of changes. This is the thing, like you've got to be slightly insane to want to take on this lifestyle because but in a good. Most excited is to get this website off the ground properly. I'm honestly just loving the response that the Remote Creatives has had so far. Then also I've got a few destinations coming up and projects coming up that creative digital nomads and aspiring creative digital nomads will hopefully be super interested in as well. So stay tuned. Yeah, I think honestly the biggest thing for me is just I'm excited with where the projects that I've been developing, like the Remote Creatives, they're just taking on a life of their own. And that is both terrifying and super exciting. And I think that's what I'm excited for, to see where that goes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for inspiring us with all of those ideas and projects and destinations. Han Meets World. Thank you for meeting Remote Work Europe.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Remote Work Europe podcast, brought to you by remoteworkeurope.eu. We bring you community, information, training, coaching, and more to help you achieve your location-independent lifestyle in Europe and beyond as an employee, entrepreneur, freelancer, or whatever you want to be. If you enjoyed the show, please like, rate, and comment, and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts. If you really liked it, we'd appreciate a review as well. Here's to your remote work success in Europe and around the world.